Models are way too expensive, is what a lot of people say, and after seeing the average price tag of about $2,000 on a high-end model, half of which is from rigging, I don't blame them. That being said, it's important to understand why it costs as much as it does. So in this video, I spent 7 days learning how to rig so that hopefully we can learn a thing or two as to why the cost is so high and maybe even inspire some of you to rig. So without further ado, let's get on with it. First things first, a plan. How exactly was I going to approach something as intimidating and complicated as rigging? Easy! The same way I learned any new skill, to break it down into bite-sized and more manageable pieces. If you try to take everything on all at once, you'll just get overwhelmed and frustrated. So with this in mind, I split my 7 days into 7 different sections. Day 1 was going to be dedicated to familiarizing myself with the software. Day 2 through 6 would be working on each body part individually. Eyes, mouth, head, hair, body. And then the final day, day 7, is polish. It'll be a full day dedicated to just tying everything together, cleaning it all up, and making sure no issues arise. I then set myself 2 rules. Rule 1. A day is counted as long as I've spent a minimum of 5 hours, but no more than 8. Any time after 8 hours would be counted as a new day. This meant that I could split a day's work into 2 days if I knew I didn't have enough time to fit it all in one, which gave me the flexibility to continue important things like my day job and streaming while still getting this challenge done. The 8-hour daily max was to ensure that I didn't run myself into the ground each day, working endlessly. It'll also be more realistic for most people watching. Rule number 2. The end result must be a fully usable Live2D model. Art can be gotten from somewhere else, but all rigging must be done by me and then exported to be used in Vtuber Studio. Here's a little bit of a disclaimer before we continue. I've used Live2D before, but only for a very short amount of time, roughly 2 years ago. I only learned the very basics of basics, and even those ones I've forgotten over so much time. This pretty much felt like I was starting all over again from scratch. But with that said, a game plan in mind and the rules set, I dived right in and downloaded Live2D, excited and ready to give it everything I had. Day 1. The first day was all about getting a feel and an understanding of general concepts of Live2D, such as parameters, deformers, meshes, etc. To give you a quick rundown of all the things I just said, the meshes are the triangles you see here. They allow the image to warp and bend. Deformers are what you control to warp and bend these meshes, and the parameters are like animation keyframes. They set the deformer values, and it's what the software like Vtuber Studio references to know what to move and by how much based on what it's tracking. Like your eyes! I'm the type who learns best when I get my hands dirty, so instead of learning only the theory, I wanted to get hands-on as soon as possible. So I created a very scuffed model with all the basic elements of the head, such as the eyes, nose, face, ears, mouth, neck, and this single piece of hair. As I was making the model, I grew an attachment to it, so I named him Jim. I don't know why I gave Jim stoner eyes, but I kept it for a short while. I watched a few tutorials, and after a few hours of work, I ended up with this. It's safe to say, I had a long way to go, but it was a decent start. Day 2. Today was all about the eyes. I watched multiple tutorials, namely one by Yoshino Art. Their links will be in the description along with all the other tutorials that I watched. I figured that in order to get the most of what I was learning, I needed a proper model to practice on. So, I'm sorry, Jim my pal. I only just made you, but it's time for you to chill on the sidelines for now. Introducing Jim's replacement! Naiichie's incredibly cute model, which I stumbled upon while scrolling through the trenches of Twitter. It's really well made and has everything I needed, so it was perfect for my needs. She's selling this as a Live2D learning model on her Ko-fi if y'all are interested. No rigging was applied, but everything was cut and ready to go. The tutorial by Yoshino Art taught me a lot about how the tools work without having to worry about perspective too much. I was able to use a pre-made model I bought from Mochi Mochi Boo Boo here, and I used that a lot to reference how certain things were made, like the head and eye movements for example. During my rigging adventures, I discovered clipping layers, deformer hierarchies, the reflection tool, which is incredibly useful by the way, and most enjoyably, physics! To give a quick explanation, clipping layers allow you to show parts of images depending on what's overlaying them or vice versa, like this! Deformer hierarchies manage the order in which things are moved. For example, I can move the eye on its own like this, but if I put it in the face deformer and move the face, the eyes move with it too. The reflection tool allows you to set a value on one side and then copy it directly to the other side, but mirrored. This way, you don't have to manually do both sides of the head turn, so you can just do one side and reflect it to the other. It makes things really consistent and also speeds up the process a bunch. Physics makes things sway, jiggle, and bounce, depending on what moves. With the proper model to use and a great Live2D file to reference, not only did I enjoy myself more, but I felt like I understood things a lot quicker, leading to much better results after just a short amount of time. And this was how the completed eye rigging looks. Day 3. Day 3 was focused on mouth rigging. Or at least it was until I saw a mouth shape chart and realized how tedious it might all be, and so I decided to move my lazy butt to head movement instead. For now. It was a lot more interesting in my opinion, and I felt like I could learn more because of that. But big respects to all the advanced mouth riggers out there, especially the V-bridge riggers. Also, side note, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I actually got an upgrade to my mouth movement, which is the V-bridger update. It looks really cool, right? Big props to Umi Papa over here for tolerating my many feedbacks and giving me something that I really like and enjoy to use. Thank you, Umi Papa! Back to the video. Oh, and also Uncle R's too, thank you. So this day had me learning how to make custom meshes, which gave me a lot more control than auto-creating them. I watched a lot of tutorials, but this one in particular by Kira Omori absolutely blew my mind. I didn't realize that I could use the deform path tool instead of the warp deformers as long as I set up my meshes like this. No longer did I have to spend long and painful hours trying to get smooth and exact curves like I did when I was using warp deformers. I could do it like this instead! This method was much more streamlined and intuitive. Another thing that Kira did was this sorcery. I also got to see how Kira did her up and down deforms, which was really handy to see as well. With all this knowledge under my belt, the total time spent on making the head movements decreased substantially, and the hairs I've pulled out of my head were reduced to 0. So far, it's looking pretty good, but we still have 3 other things to learn and tackle. Mouth, hair, and booba, body, oh yeah, body, and this cool line disappearing thing. Day 4. The 4th day was all about the hair. This amazing tutorial by Uberuna made hair physics so much easier to do. What wasn't so nice to do though was making all the meshes for each hair individually. It was a bit tedious since there were so many, and I'm pretty sure I did some inefficiently, but I did get a lot of mesh practice in. It took me a little bit to figure out how to approach the process exactly, but I figured going for a layer structure should work. Starting with the bangs, then the sides, and then finally the back. It seemed like everything was going fine until I had to do the sides. I got really confused because I didn't know how to push something behind when it was already in front without making it look weird. I managed to get some help though from rigger friends, and it ended up working pretty well. And after all that, this is what the hair looked like. I was learning a lot of things and genuinely enjoyed rigging. It was the most fun I had learning to create something since I was creating games back in university. But everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. When life decided to take me to a not so great detour. TLDR, I had less time and more unpleasant stuff to deal with, but alas, like the Avatar emerging from the glacier and returning after 100 years to end the war, I needed to pick myself back up and return to rigging so that I can finally finish the final 3 days of this challenge. Also, sorry, I just finished watching Avatar The Last Airbender at the time of writing the script, and my god, that show is amazing! Anyway, day 5! Due to the mini hiatus, I had to spend some time refreshing my memory, but thankfully it didn't take very long at all. With pretty much all other parts of the head done, it was time to go back and finally learn mouth and ear rigging for this day. Firstly, the mouth. At first, I wanted to pull off this complex mouth rigging created by Cozy, but of course, as a total beginner, there was no way I could pull this off within a decent time frame. With the time I had left, I needed something simpler, to which I stumbled upon this neat little find on Booth. It's a reference file of a mouth rig. I was almost set on using it, but I stumbled upon yet another mouth rig reference, this time by Ransom VT. It was even simpler and with half as many keys as the previous simple rig. I knew that, at least for now, this was my best option. My goal was to get something working fully and in the least amount of time as possible while also learning as much as I can. So, all things considered, this fit the bill perfectly. Second, the ears. The ears were a lot harder than I thought they were, and I was pulling my hair out trying to figure out how they worked. Understanding animal ears in perspective was an entirely different challenge on its own that I'm nowhere near familiar with. Then I realized I could rig it similarly to how I rigged the eyes. Does it look top tier? No, not really. But does it work? It sure does. And considering the amount of time I have left, having something that just works for now is good enough for me. And look, I even got to add a little bit of ear physics too. Day 6. We're on the home stretch now, and the second last day was all about the booba. I mean the body. The body, the body and physics. As always, I started off by watching a tutorial on how to rig the body. This time, it was the tutorial by Yoshino Art. It seemed pretty straightforward, so I took the process of how angle X rigging works and applied that to angle Y as well. I did this for every part that would be affected by the body. The arms, head, accessories, etc. Once I was happy with the result, I went on to the moment you've all been waiting for.
Okay, it's happening!
Jiggle physics! In order to first understand how this works, I watched this tutorial by Cutie Dragon. As soon as I got the gist, I hopped back into Live2D and started jiggling it up. At first, it was a bit too much, but as I continued to refine the motion more, it started to look a bit more natural. Or you can just ramp it up as much as you can. It's really up to you. I don't have any. And now we have the first bit of physics on our model. The day was coming to a close, but I managed to get in some partial physics for the hair and cape before I did. Day 7. It's the final day. Whew. Oh my god, we did it. All in all, progress was pretty good and we've come a really long way. But now it was time to wrap it all up with some polish. The goal was simple: to tie everything together, tweak the motions, iron out the kinks, clean everything up, and most importantly, resist the urge to add more things. I know you know this cool thing that you want to add, but this is the moment where you really need to get this thing shipped. So you gotta just leave that on the wayside for now. Because I couldn't complete the physics on day 6, I had to make sure I did it for day 7 along with polish. Polish usually takes a while because it's all about the little stuff that requires a lot of micro adjustments to really take everything to the next level. There's just a lot of little stuff. Oh, I almost forgot. I also wanted to do this line disappearing effect for the face too. Thankfully, it was just a simple clipping trick. We finally come to the end. And before I show you the final result, I'll just summarize my entire experience first. In just 7 days, I was able to learn Live2D and create a fully usable model. Was it easy? Absolutely not! It's quite challenging, and a lot of creative problem solving was needed. If you're not used to doing these types of things, it might be a bit daunting at first. If I didn't have all the resources that I did, I don't think I could have completed it to the same degree in the same amount of time. That being said, you really don't need to buy anything. There's a lot of free practice and reference models out there, not to mention the plentiful array of YouTube tutorials. You just have to take a look around. Though I will be putting a link to the playlist I created and used in this video, along with any future ones I decided to add in, so do take a look. It'll be down in the description below. So with all that out of the way, here is the final result of my 7 days of learning Live2D from scratch. I hope that this video gave you a little bit more insight as to why VTuber models cost as much as they do. You're not only paying for a model, but you're paying for the time the artist put in to learn the craft, and the actual time spent making the model. As you've seen from the video, there's a lot that goes into it. From the design, art, and piece separation, to the actual rigging itself and all the revisions and iterations in between. It's a very specialized skill that takes a lot of dedication to get good at, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't at least try to pick it up if you're interested. Who knows, it might just be right up your alley. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Ciao!